Hey y'all, how are all my beautiful friends doing? I hope y'all all have had an amazing weekend and welcome back to Crime Time with Mal. So today's video, I know y'all have highly requested to see my face, so here we are. I have a playlist on my channel which is all about cases like these where they're ruled an accident or an unalive and there's something a little deeper and the family does not believe that that is what actually happened. So this is gonna be one of those cases and it's all about Tiffany Valiante. Really hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Oh no, I have issues with pronunciation, so I really hope I'm not butchering her last name. But she was 18 years old and she was literally the whole entire package. She was living in Galloway Township, New Jersey, and she was a popular, beautiful, kind, smart, an extremely talented athlete, and her friends and family completely adored her. The problem is, the summer of 2015, July, to be exact, Tiffany got into an argument with one of her friends and her mom, kind of an argument. You know, they just kind of went back and forth a little bit. And then Tiffany disappeared. In the middle of the night, she is afraid of the dark and literally just walked off. Nobody could find her until it was ruled an unalive attempt when Tiffany was found hit by a train. The police there said that she ran or jumped in front of this train, and her family does not buy this. They don't buy this. She was happy. She had a bright future ahead of her and she was making plans for her future. Tiffany was beautiful, bright, talented, full of life, and very energetic. She was also extremely athletic, and she ended up getting a scholarship to play volleyball as a middle starter, which was a huge deal for her and her family. She had some amazing, huge goals and dreams in her life, and her family was her biggest fan. Tiffany was born to her parents, Stephen and Diane, and they met in 1986, and Diane already had two girls, Jessica and Crystal, from a previous relationship. And then along came beautiful, sweet Tiffany on March 3rd, 1997. And this, to them, was a complete and total shock. They weren't planning on having any more kids, so it kind of took them by surprise. But as soon, like most of us that have surprise babies, I can speak for myself, as soon as you lay your eyes on these babies, everything seems right in the world and you can't imagine living without them. Like, they were the missing piece to your family puzzle, and that's how it was with Tiffany. On July 12th, 2015, Tiffany and her parents went across the street of their home to Tiffany's cousin's graduation party. They were steaming clams, they were hanging out, and they were just having a great time. Now, Diane and Stephen stayed at the party, and they remember Tiffany going home about 9:15 p.m. And then Diane got a call from one of Tiffany's friends and said, "Hey, can you come over? I'm pulling into your driveway." She says, okay. She goes inside to let Stephen know what is going on. And Stephen's like, "Hey, I'll come with you." So they walk back over to their house. They walk in between this road, like in between houses from what I can gather, and they hear Tiffany and her friend screaming at each other. Tiffany's friend is accusing Tiffany of stealing her credit card and using it without her permission, and Tiffany is screaming back, "No, I didn't." Tiffany's friend gets in her car and leaves, and then Tiffany looks up at her mom and admits that she did take her friend's credit card. Tiffany's mom ends up getting mad at her and she's like, "I raised you better than this. You know better than this. How could you do that? You know you're not supposed to take people's money. Like, why would you do this? Now I have to go tell your dad." So as soon as she goes inside to tell Stephen, they get Stephen and turn around and walk back outside, and Tiffany is gone. By this time, it was about 9:29 and everyone started looking for Tiffany. There were people driving around in cars. There were people walking. I mean, how far could really Tiffany get on foot, scared of the dark, within a minute? There were also at least 20 to 30 cars parked on the side of the road for this party, and no one saw Tiffany. And she's not a little girl. She's like 6'2", so she would be definitely notice. They're looking behind houses, they're looking in the streets, they're looking behind trees. They are literally looking everywhere. And they feel like she wouldn't get far because, again, she's scared of the dark. Everyone was texting her, calling her, asking her to call them, asking if she's okay, wondering where she is. Everybody is truly concerned about where Tiffany is. Steven starts to call and leave voicemails for his daughter to call back.
Tiff, please, just come home. I love you to death. You mean everything in the world to me. Please just come home.
And as he is walking up and down the street, he notices Tiffany's phone in the grass right in front of their house. Like, here's the road, here's her phone in the grass. Right there. Steven said she would have never left her phone. She's a typical 18-year-old. She is always on her phone. She can't even go to the bathroom without her phone. So many things just start going through your head, and then Steven remembers he has a deer cam that's on his property. They check out the camera and see if they can find Tiffany on it, and at 9:28 they see Tiffany walking down the driveway. And then at 9:29, that is when they see them on the driveway looking for Tiffany. So literally 1 minute. This is important, and you can see from this picture what Tiffany is wearing. She has on a black t-shirt. She has blue jean shorts on that are almost white. She's got these flat shoes on. Her hair is in a messy bun, and she has a white headband on. Her mom did say that it seemed like Tiffany's name was called, and then she went out of view of the camera. Diane ends up calling Michael, which is her brother-in-law, so Steven's brother, and he lives right down the road. She asked if he could help find Tiffany, and of course, he dropped everything and started to search for his niece. They go to his mom's house, Tiffany's grandmother's, which is about less than a half a mile. It's about a half a mile down the road, and Tiffany is not there. He keeps driving around, and then he gets this gut feeling, and he turns down Pominoa Road. He gets to the railroad tracks, and there's this access road that's next to the train tracks for, you know, transit going back and forth, and he sees a ton of police cars. But Galloway Township did not get involved. The police department there did not get involved because the road that it was on, it was out of their jurisdiction, and New Jersey Transit took over the case. One of the transit police officers was there, and Michael, the uncle, ended up asking him if they have seen Tiffany. He described what she looked like. He said, no, we haven't seen her, but a female did get struck by a train. At that point, Michael's not even thinking, like, he has nowhere in his mind that that could be his niece. But New Jersey Transit is pretty confident that that is Tiffany. And they ask Michael to try and see if he can identify his niece. Michael identifies Tiffany, and he is obviously in complete shock, and he said that he firmly believes that he was the one that was led to find Tiffany instead of her parents, because they would not be able to handle what he saw. At 2:30 in the morning, Diane sees Michael and a New Jersey Transit officer pull into the driveway, and Diane walks outside screaming, "What happened? What happened?" She's absolutely losing her mind, and I cannot imagine. My heart aches. Michael then tells his brother and his sister-in-law that Tiffany was unfortunately hit by a train. They're both screaming. Steven is screaming that he wants to go down there and make sure it's her. He wants to see, and Michael is saying, no, you don't. I promise you it's her. You don't want to see that. He's trying to spare them from what they would see. I would not be able to handle it, so I don't blame him. They all just cried and held each other, and they were in complete and total shock. She's there 1 minute, and the next minute she's gone, literally gone. The next day, on July 13th, 2015, they had no answers of what happened. They don't know how Tiffany got hit. They literally have no answers. And then they see in the newspaper that an article was published that Tiffany died by unaliving herself. It said that she stayed on the train tracks and did not move when the train approached. Her parents were completely devastated. Tiffany was not depressed. She had plans the next day. She was planning for college. She was talking to her roommate about college. Like, she had so many things in line that There's no way that Tiffany would have done this. Even though it was only July, Tiffany was already ready to go to college. She was excited to go to college and start this new chapter in her life. And people that knew Tiffany, like really knew Tiffany, knew that this just was not what happened. Tiffany's family hired an attorney named Paul D'Amato, and he has been a lawyer for 26 years. He heard their story, he saw how broken they were, and they explained to him that Tiffany did not do this. So Paul got the records from New Jersey Transit, and he was prepared to tell this family, look, this is unfortunately what happened. Tiffany did do this. But instead, when he got I'm sorry for the lighting. When he got those records, he was completely confused, perplexed, stunned. Now, what they do know for a fact that night is on Sunday, July 12th, New Jersey Transit train number 4693 left Philly at 9:50 p.m., heading east to Atlantic City. About 60 passengers and crew were on board. The train just passed the bridge in Galloway Township, heading towards the crossing at Genoa Avenue, and at 11:12 p.m. at mile marker 45 was when Tiffany was hit at a very dark road. The train was examined, and it showed that the impact was on the lower left side of the train, like real close to the train tracks. There was also 2 engineers on board, a senior engineer and a student engineer, who both made statements about that night. Both of them said on this report that they saw Tiffany jump in front of the train. The problem with this is 6 days later, when the senior engineer was put under oath, he comes up with a completely different story of what he told the detectives that happened that night. He said he was talking to the conductor and his back was turned to the train tracks and he never saw anything. Now, the student engineer's story is a little different. He was asked, when did you see Tiffany? And he said that he didn't see Tiffany until he was on top of her. 10 days later, when he was put under oath, he said that he saw Tiffany about a half a mile away. Then he saw something a quarter mile away, and then all of a sudden, someone jumps out of the woods and onto the train tracks. The student engineer is the only witness, and now his stories are conflicting. So did he see her jump in front of the train tracks, or did he notice her when he was on top of her? Which one is it? Those are 2 completely different things. New Jersey Transit stands behind the student engineer's different stories and ruled it an unalive. Now, this retired medical examiner, Louise Hausman, she ended up looking over this case. She also had worked in New Jersey, and she was pretty concerned about the stories that the engineers gave the transit. Now, inside every single train, and I'm pretty sure most automobiles are like this also, there's this little black box, and that black box literally records everything that this train does. Every time it brakes, every time it blows a horn, every time it does anything, it is all recorded in this black box. So from the time the student engineer sounded the horn, then struck Tiffany and applied the emergency brakes, it took a total of 4 seconds with this train going 80 miles per hour. 4 seconds. This all happened. In her opinion, she thinks that the student engineer was in complete shock at what happened from the trauma that he witnessed, because she said that his report is just all over the place. It does not make sense. He contradicts himself in a few things, and she thinks it is because of the shock. He just seems like he's not really sure what he saw. Now, this is going to be a little graphic, so I apologize, but just if you want to skip forward, just tap on the screen a few times and it will take you forward. But Louise thinks that this student engineer actually saw Tiffany flying everywhere, if you catch my drift, and not her jumping in front of the train. And she thinks she was already deceased on the train tracks. Y'all know, if you have watched my channel for any amount of time, that I say this all the time in my videos. I don't care what the scene looks like. If it looks like an unalive, you treat it as a homicide. That, to me, is what good law enforcement does until they can rule out otherwise. Now, Jim, he is a private detective. He's also dabbled in some police work as well. And he became involved after Paul, the attorney, asked him to come on board and help him out with this case. Jim drove to the train tracks, and y'all, this is 2.6 miles away from Tiffany's home. So Tiffany walked 2.6 miles all the way to these train tracks when she's afraid of the dark just to jump in front of a train. I don't know, that does not make sense to me. Everyone working on this case, the lawyer, Jim, Louise, they all thought something was wrong. Just stuff was not adding up. Multiple people are convinced that Tiffany did not do this. And actually, New Jersey Transit is one of America's largest transit operators. I didn't know that. But they also have a very large police task force. But these police are not equipped to handle homicides or suspicious death investigations, none of that. They're just not equipped for that. They're transit police. And they were the lead on that case. That was their case, which is really concerning to me because number one, that area was not treated as a crime scene. People were walking everywhere. It was not taped off properly. And it makes me wonder if it was just like a rush to make a call so they don't have to investigate it. The death certificate says that Tiffany passed away shortly before midnight on July 12th. And then on July 17th, that is clearly dated in this death certificate, the manner of death is unalive. In 5 days, they made that ruling. 5 days. I'm sorry, I'm not a medical examiner, I'm not a police officer, but to me, how can you make a ruling that fast? How? I would love to know. Toxicology, medical examiner, none of the reports have came back. So how can you be so sure that that is the cause of death? And as a matter of fact, a full autopsy report wasn't even done on Tiffany. No DNA was tested, no R kit was performed, no organs or anything was examined. And the toxicology report ended up coming back completely clean. There was not one drop of alcohol, not one substance in Tiffany's body. It was completely clean as a whistle. And what's worse, y'all, is a couple of days after Tiffany's death, she was cremated. So there is no chance to rerun any types of tests. That was their one shot and they botched it, in my personal opinion. What's also extremely interesting to me is in this report, the detective says that Tiffany was not wearing shoes and they searched the area and could not find any shoes. Tiffany was wearing shoes. We all saw it on camera. So where are her shoes? Where did they go? And as a matter of fact, when they found Tiffany, the only thing she had on was a black sports bra and her underwear. Investigators never interviewed her friends. They never interviewed her family. They never interviewed anyone. And she had no history of depression or mental illness or anything of that sort. Now, she did have a girlfriend that lived in Philly that they had just broken up, but her mom went through the text messages and it was very amicable. It was a mutual breakup. There were no hard feelings involved. They were extremely sweet text messages, as a matter of fact. You could tell that they were very respectful and they cared very deeply for one another. It was just, you know, she was going off to college. They lived in different states, and long distance when you're 18, that's really hard. So it did not end on bad terms. And actually, Tiffany started seeing another woman, and she tweeted on social media not long before her death that she was very content in her life right now. So you mean to tell me, because of this fight with her friend and because of her mom, she just ran off, threw her cell phone out into the yard and went to go get hit by a train? Her family members ended up starting to look around at the scene to see if they could find Tiffany's missing belongings. Her shorts, her shoes, her shirt, her headband, her jewelry, those are all still missing. Nobody has found those items. They found various parts of Tiffany along the tracks and around the area. They also found a bracelet that Tiffany was wearing at the time that Michael ended up giving to Diane, and she wore it for a very long time. That was the last thing that Tiffany had on her, and y'all, oh my gosh. They also found like latex gloves with blood still on them that were still there at the crime scene. So everybody just was like, is this botched? Did they do a thorough investigation? What is going on? But that day they never found anything else. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, Diane and Stephen and the family would just walk up and down the street looking to see if they could find anything of Tiffany's. Diane, during one of her walks looking for Tiffany's stuff, ended up looking over on the side of the street one day and she found Tiffany's shoes. She instantly fell to the ground and felt sick and started crying. And when she fell to the ground, she looked up, and just past her shoes, about 6 feet away, was Tiffany's white headband. Diane immediately calls her family to tell them what she has found, and Diane realizes that it was almost 2 miles away from where she was hit. They were off the road by a tree, a foot apart. New Jersey Transit came out, they took pictures and collected them for evidence and put them in a brown bag. And Diane and her family never heard a word from them again after they found those items. And they were never sent out for testing. 5 years later, the family did hire somebody to do testing on those items. But from what I can gather, the chain of command was broken, so they're unable to use those findings from that testing result. Now, after they found these shoes, about 15 people came out and started looking all over the train tracks to see if they could find anything else. The one thing that they still cannot find is Tiffany's blue jean, almost white shorts. They are still missing. And why were her shoes where they were? So you mean to tell me Tiffany walked away from her house, took off her shoes and her headband, and then just walked the rest of the way, 2 miles almost, to go get hit by a train? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Y'all have to remember, this is very rough road. This is a train track. There's rocks, there's wood chips everywhere, there's broken glass, and the bottom of Tiffany's feet were clean. There was no cuts, no dirt, nothing. It's like she didn't even walk. Her feet would at least have some dirt on it, correct? Or some marks from the glass or something. Plus, with all those people around, nobody saw Tiffany walking down the road. Everyone starts to look at Steve's deer cams, and they notice that as you see Tiffany walking down the road, to the right, you see headlights coming down. So did she get into a car with somebody that she knew, and then when she got in there, they threw out her phone before they pulled off? I mean, Tiffany was on foot, supposedly. If she was on foot, in 1 minute, with all those people searching for her in their car and everything, she would have been found. So this honestly makes me think that she did get into a vehicle with someone. And this is just my opinion, y'all. Now I want to talk about these evidence photos. I obviously cannot share them here, but you can find them online, but YouTube obviously won't allow me to do that. There is a large pool of blood on the tracks where she was during impact. Now this is on the actual track. This is not on the side. This is not in the middle. This is on the track where the wheels are. Almost like she was laying there, not sitting, laying. Medical examiner and the lawyer and everybody are saying, like, in order for there to be that much, she had to have been laying there out before the train came and hit her. But they never tested anything. Yet again, the medical examiner report also says that Tiffany's legs and arms were cut, not ripped or torn, but cut from the torso. Now I assume this because cutting is a clean line, tearing, there's jagged, correct? So her feet and her hands are intact, but it seems to me like the wheels of the train removed them. I know it's graphic, y'all, but it really does show that Tiffany was laying like sprawled out on the train tracks long ways. How else would that happen? How else would her limbs get cut off if she was not laying down on the train tracks? Now, Paul and his team and the family set up posters and signs everywhere with a hotline to call in for tips because they wanted those tips directly, and a tip was called in. This call was from a convenience store worker who overheard his 3 employees talking about Tiffany and how it was not an accident. That worker came in for questioning, and he said that the 3 workers were saying it was a homicide, and that those 3 people, they weren't involved, but they were relaying what they had heard from other people. One of those people was at his uncle's party that night, and he did see Tiffany at the party. He said that there was an argument. Tiffany was picked up by someone she knew. 2 females and 1 male. They took her to the train tracks. They stripped her down, held her at point. I can't say certain words on YouTube, I'm sorry. And they completely humiliated her. So this is basically third-party stories. On January 4th, 2017, prosecutors interviewed the 3 workers. All 3 workers denied ever saying anything about Tiffany's case, and one person in particular said it was completely absurd what was being told. Now, some of Tiffany's friends did say that Tiffany was always happy, but she was depressed. New Jersey Medical Examiner Office did review Tiffany's case back in 2018, and it came up with the same conclusions, that Tiffany unalived herself. Now, one of my amazing viewers reached out to me, and she actually said that she knows the family and is a local. And she suggested that she would go down and give y'all firsthand footage of what the area actually looks like and how desolate it really is. This is on the way there. So she literally went from where Tiffany lives to where Tiffany was found. And as you can see, the area is pretty heavily covered in woods, and it's a 53-minute walk from her house to where Tiffany was found. There's a train going by on the same track, and there is nothing around except for really homeless people. It's just all woods and nothing else. So you can only imagine how dark it would be at nighttime. And for somebody that's afraid of the dark, why on earth are they gonna walk all this way, literally in the middle of the nowhere, feet cleaned? You see all the debris around, everything around on the ground. Her feet should not be clean. Here's some trash. I assume that's from homeless people. There's just homeless people all around this area, which is another thing that is extremely concerning. So I'm just gonna let this play out to give y'all a little better idea of the surroundings and what Tiffany was seeing that night, or should I say what she wasn't seeing, because you can't see anything at night in this area. What do y'all think? I am so curious to know your thoughts and opinions. Y'all obviously know mine because I've said it throughout this whole video. A lot of stuff does not add up to me. A lot. I definitely don't think that she got a fair investigation, and I definitely think the ball was dropped. Transit police, like I said, they're not equipped, in my personal opinion, to handle cases like this. I think it would have been in their best interest to turn the case over to somebody else that was more qualified to handle these types of cases. Again, you don't just go on scene and be like, oh, well, this looks like it's an unalive, so we're gonna treat it as an unalive. No, you treat it as a homicide until you have different steps to prove that it's different. Her family deserves the truth. Tiffany deserves the truth, and I want them to get answers. They deserve to get answers. At least a fair investigation. So y'all, that is it for today's video. Let me know what you think down below. Also, if you have not subscribed, what the heck are you doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future updates and lives. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. It helps out my channel and also helps out spread awareness for these cases and get them out into the YouTube algorithm, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. I'm sure Tiffany's family would as well. If you're not done watching some of my videos, I have a playlist over on my channel, like I said, that has a lot of these types of cases in there. I also have a ton of different playlists. So if you stay till the end, you will see an end screen with a video suggested that you would more than likely like, and also a playlist. So I would love to have you continue watching if you want to. And I appreciate every single one of y'all. This lighting. I'm trying to close my blinds, but it's not working. I cannot tell y'all thank you enough. I truly appreciate each and every single one of you. And thank you so much for watching. I love y'all so very much. I hope y'all have an amazing week, and stay tuned because I will be going live later on this week. If you head over to my community tab, I'll keep y'all all updated over there, and I will see you in my live and on Friday's video. Bye y'all, have an amazing week. Bye, I love you, bye. I just hit myself in the nose.